One of the most popular holidays around the world is Easter. What most do not realize, however, is that Easter is the culmination of a succession of ancient pagan holidays that begin in the fall and continue into spring. While millions of believers celebrate these days, none of them can truly be considered Christian. To find out why, stay tuned. The holiday of Easter is observed by people of all races and creeds around the world. What most do not realize, though, is that Easter is neither Christian, nor does it truly honor Jesus Christ. Easter has always, in fact, been a pagan holiday that was observed long before Christianity. In fact, there were many cultures who worshipped the various gods of this holiday known to them as Ashtoreth, Astarte, Isis, Ostara, Ishtar, and Easter. This information alone may be a shock to many of you, but what is even more surprising is the fact that the holiday of Easter is the culmination of a series of religious rites observed by heathen long before the existence of Christianity. Why, these holidays begin in the fall and continue into spring. And the first holiday was known as Samhain. As historian Dorothy Spicer noted, two ancient Druids, the end of October, commemorated the festival of the waning year. Samhain, or Summer's End as this feast to the dying sun was called, was celebrated with human sacrifice, augury, and prayers. Not until the 4th century did the pagan vigil for the god of light give way to All Hallows, the Mass for Christian saints, and not until the 10th did the Druids' death feast become All Souls, the day of prayer for souls that had entered rest. The next holiday in this series fell in the winter and was called the Saturnalia. I notice what a study of 4,000 years of Christmas revealed. The Catholic Church fathers discovered to their alarm that they were also facing an invasion of pagan customs. The habit of the Saturnalia was too strong to be left behind. At first, the Church forbade it, but in vain. The Church finally succeeded in taking the merriment, the greenery, the lights, and the gifts from Saturn and giving them to the babe of Bethlehem. Along with this adaptation of Samhain and the Saturnalia came the celebration of the New Year on January 1st, where the gods Janus, Dionysus, Bacchus, and others were honored. Then in the spring there is the holiday of Easter. It would be difficult to find anyone who has not heard of Halloween, Christmas, or Easter, but a much smaller number are aware of the festivals in between. By just 12 days after Christmas, and within a week of New Year's Day, is the observance of Epiphany. Many of you may be familiar with the famous carol, 12 Days of Christmas, where a true love supposedly gives outrageous gifts, and this carol reflects the count to the next observance. But what most do not know is that Christmas, Epiphany, Ash Wednesday, and Lent all predate Christianity. In fact, the series of holidays begin 12 days after Christmas. They received the name Carnival in the Middle Ages. Notice what historian Lavinia Dobler wrote in her book of customs and holidays around the world. Carnival is the season of merrymaking that precedes Lent. Carnival season traditionally begins on Epiphany, January 6th, and ends at midnight on Shrove Tuesday. What's important to know is that the celebrations that take place during Carnival predate Christianity. Why the faithful church began by Christ did not observe any holy day that was not found in the Bible. During the 1st and 2nd centuries, however, there was widespread Roman persecution of Christians. Eventually, Emperor Constantine pronounced Christianity legal by the Edict of Toleration. This decree brought diverse groups of believers out of hiding, and it was at this time that a form of Christianity developed within the expansion of the Roman Empire, but it was very different than the faith once delivered to the saints. Apostate church leaders adopted various traditions from the pagan cultures that had been conquered by the empire. Historian Will Durant wrote, "Christianity did not destroy paganism. It adopted it. The Greek mysteries passed down into the impressive mystery of the Mass. From Egypt came the idea of a divine trinity, the adoration of the mother and child, and the mystic theosophy that made Neoplatonism and Gnosticism and obscured the Christian creed. The Mithraic ritual so closely resembled the Eucharist sacrifice of the Mass that Christian fathers charged the devil with inventing these similarities to mislead frail minds." According to Durant, this new form of Christianity was the last great creation of the ancient pagan world. The celebrations of Halloween, Christmas, Carnival, and Easter were holidays that resulted from this apostasy. By the first reference to Epiphany as a church holiday was 361 AD. Today, the observance carries many names such as Theophany, Festival of Lights, 12th Day of Christmas, or Three Kings Day. And although the names may differ, all of the names claim to reference a revealing or manifestation of Christ, such as the day Christ was visited by wise men, the day he was baptized, or the time he turned water into wine. Because the days are supposed to portray advents of Christ as the light of the world, the Roman Church modified pre-existing aspects of the Saturnalia to form a variety of observances. The transformation was noted by Francis Weiser, who wrote, "The liturgical feast of Christ's manifestation originated in the Orient, in Egypt, during the 3rd century. Modern scholars explain the date by the fact that the Egyptians celebrated on this day their great festival of the winter solstice in honor of the sun god. The church authorities opposed this pagan observance with the feast of the true manifestation of the divine Savior King. The Christian feast, in turn, occasioned among the heretical Gnostics a feast of Christ's baptism, celebrated on the same day. Because pagans worshipped the light of the sun, which waned during winter, believers adopted this theme by putting lights on trees and around their homes. Christians were encouraged to maintain these lights until Epiphany, leading to a belief in Great Britain that it's unlucky to keep Christmas decorations up after the 12th day. In fact, many continued to gather on January 6th to burn their Christmas trees and bonfires. Christ's baptism is also regarded during this time, as many believe that bodies of water are given divine properties on this day. Some in northern countries even go as far as breaking holes in the ice and submerging themselves in the water, believing it will deter illness. Some in the north triple dip in frigid waters, believing it will wash away sins. However, while Christian terms and symbols have been applied to these days, the true origins of Epiphany and Lent are steeped in the worship of gods that precede Christianity. Charles Gugnebert wrote that throughout history, the ritual development of Christianity advances step by step. It began with very simple practices. Then a meaning more and more profound and mysterious was assigned to them. They were amplified and gestures familiar to the pagans added. It is sometimes very difficult to tell exactly from which pagan rite a particular Christian rite is derived, but it remains certain that the spirit of pagan ritualism became by degrees impressed upon Christianity to such an extent that at last the whole of it might be found distributed through its ceremonies. The connection to paganism was admitted long ago and noted by a professor of history at Yale University who traced the writings of a monk stating the reason Catholic fathers adopted these celebrations. It was a custom of the heathen to celebrate on the same 25th of December the birthday of the sun, at which they kindled lights in token of festivity. In these solemnities and festivities the Christians also took part. Accordingly, when the doctors of the church perceived that the Christians had a leaning to this festival, they took counsel and resolved that the true nativity should be solemnized on that day, and the festival of Epiphany on the 6th of January. The truth is that no one really knows the actual date of Christ's birth. Considering the fact that shepherds were tending flocks in the hills at that time, we can be certain that it wasn't in the winter. In fact, there is no record that Christ or his apostles celebrated birthdays at all. Now, certainly Christ was born of Mary. Even the academics have been forced to admit that there's enough historical evidence to support Christ's existence and his ministry. Wise men did bring his family gifts, and he was baptized as an example to future believers. However, the Bible does not tell us when these events happened or advise people to adopt holidays celebrating his birth, his baptism, or resurrection. There is no evidence, in fact, of faithful people decorating trees or triple dipping in water or coloring eggs. By using those pagan traditions and claiming that they honor biblical events, what churches have done is add to the scriptures, something that God strongly forbids. As it is written, "You shall not add to the word which I command you, nor take from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you." Contrary to God's instructions, apostate church leaders thought they were being wise by bringing pagan rituals into the church. They thought they could confiscate heathen traditions and put new names and symbols on them, and God would put his stamp of approval on it. But what they have done is mix evil with good, lies with the truth, and put darkness for light. And God forbids this. Even the Apostle John said that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. And notice what Isaiah quoted God to say. "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight." Yes, the celebration of Epiphany may have seemed like a prudent thing to do, but it's a lie that has led countless numbers away from the truth. And the observance of the Saturnalia and Carnival have led hundreds of millions to mock Jesus Christ. Not only are Christmas and Epiphany wrong, they are the beginning of a count to the next link in this heathen holiday chain, a cesspool of sin known as Mardi Gras. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to know the truth about these holidays, and there's much more for you to know. To help you, Quest for Truth is offering a free booklet. The Eternal Church of God produces a variety of literature to help people understand the truth about many secular and religious holidays. Today we are featuring the booklet titled The Truth About Mardi Gras, Epiphany, Ash Wednesday, and Lent. This booklet discusses everything mentioned in this program and much more. All of the literature we produce is offered as a free service in the public interest. There will be no undesired follow-up. You may visit our website to read or request this booklet, or stay tuned, and at the end of this program, we will show you how to receive a free copy of The Truth About Mardi Gras, Epiphany, Ash Wednesday, and Lent. So far, we've heard about the origin of Christmas and Epiphany, going back to a series of holidays connected to the Saturnalia. But there's more. Why, the activities leading up to Easter are part of a festival known as Carnival. Most people today are familiar with the term Mardi Gras, which is a French expression meaning Fat Tuesday. Mardi Gras is a time of indulgence and includes parties, parades, feasting, and an excess of alcohol. Notice what Franklin Douglas wrote in the American Book of Days. Epiphany marks the close of the Advent season, during which strict observance of their religious duties is enjoined. It also once marked the beginning of the Carnival season, which continued until Shrove Tuesday, the day before Ash Wednesday. It has been the custom in the United States for many secular organizations to have a 12th day frolic. In New Orleans, 12th night is observed as the beginning of the Carnival season, preliminary to the fasting of Lent. It is applied to the season of feasting and revelry preceding the abstinence of Lent. Mardi Gras has become a traditional festival of Southern American culture. However, it did not originate in America, and it certainly is not related to anything decent. From France came the symbolism of a fattened ox, followed by a child called the King of Butchers. People wear brightly colored costumes during these celebrations. They have masked balls and indulge the flesh. Similar activities occur in Portugal, Mexico, Cuba, and Brazil, and many other countries where excessive amounts of alcohol are also consumed. People gallivant through the streets while a procession of floats are displayed. This custom of gallivanting while wearing masks dates back to pre-Roman times and came from a pagan fertility festival known as the Lupercalia. Douglas again spoke of this ancient rite and reveals how it entered the Mardi Gras celebration. The wearing of masks dates back to the Roman Lupercalian feast and survived in the Mardi Gras festivities in France and Italy. An organization known as Rex was formed during the visit of the Russian Grand Duke Alexis to New Orleans in 1872. This organization became permanent, and its king was recognized as the King of the Carnival, the sovereign lord of misrule. The Rex organization that began in the 1870s continues to play a leading role at Mardi Gras festivities. Their floats are reminiscent of the infamous calf Israel fashioned for their idolatrous celebration at Mount Sinai. Parties continue to include masked celebrants, and the guests of honor are called the Goddess of Chance and the Lord of Misrule. The connection to pagan rites is further noted by Francis Weiser in the Handbook of Feasts and Customs. Just as many Christmas customs and similar observances had their origin in pre-Christian times, so too some of the popular traditions of Lent and Easter date back to ancient nature rites. In order to frighten the demons of winter away, and at the same time to hide their own identity, the participants in this fight were disguised in wild and strange costumes. Wearing masks of horrible size and shape, they ran shouting and screaming through the open spaces around their homes. In addition to this connection, the lascivious aspect of Mardi Gras is connected to the Lupercalia, where a pagan rite included two half-naked males going through the streets, striking women with goatskin whips called the februa. This was done to promote fertility, and it's not hard to imagine some exposing themselves to the februa in the hopes of getting better results. A famous Latin poet known as Ovid wrote of this activity in the 1st century BC, stating, "Neither potent herbs, nor prayers, nor magic spells shall make of thee a mother. Submit with patience to the blows dealt by a fruitful hand." Similarly, today many women during Mardi Gras expose themselves in order to receive colorful plastic beads. And this activity is not only indecent and immoral, but it's related to the Lupercalia. The history of pagan religion in Greece and Rome continues to be reflected during Mardi Gras in more ways than one. As H.J. Rose noted, "It is not by accident that the ancients supposed the performance to take place in honor of a god who might be identified with the Greek Pan, for he too is a he-goat, partly humanized." Pan continues to be a part of Mardi Gras celebrations of today, not just in the behavior of some people, but also on display as one of the gods honored during this event. If this were not enough evidence connecting Mardi Gras to heathen rites, consider the names of some of the organizations called crews who sponsor activities of Mardi Gras. There is the crew of Hermes, Artemis, Chaos, the crew of Isis, Zeus, and a crew of the Greek god of wine, Bacchus. There is also a tradition of handing out fake coins and bills depicting themes of Mardi Gras, and one depiction sums up the festival very well. Why the entire event can be attributed to the crew of Satan, where all are encouraged to have a hell of a good time with their devil doubloons that pay homage to history's infamous characters. This is just a small sample of some of the connections between Mardi Gras, Epiphany, and the heathen festivals. Why the wickedness is blatantly obvious when we also consider many of the costumes people choose to wear, displaying immoral sexuality, devils, and demons. Ladies and gentlemen, Epiphany, Ash Wednesday, Lent, Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, and even Palm Sunday are intimately connected to the wayward activities of Mardi Gras that was supposed to say farewell to illicit behaviors of the flesh, but it really involves indulging the flesh. Why, anyone who believes in the God of the Bible should understand that these holidays are contrary to the laws of God and a violation of biblical principles. Why, the events come from the idea that people should overindulge fleshly desires. But notice what the Apostle John wrote. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. The Apostle John described what motivates the activities of Mardi Gras. Though it masquerades as a religious observance in preparation for the Catholic convention of Lent, it has nothing to do with the precepts of the Bible. Why, the Bible teaches us to be moderate in what we eat and drink throughout the entire year and not to overindulge in anticipation of going without. Why, Paul said that everything we do should be to the glory of God, not just some of the things we do. And Mardi Gras advocates casting off all restraints, and this is entirely opposite to the printed Word of God, which says to abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul. Something else promoted at Mardi Gras has become more acceptable as a moral decline of Western civilization is taking place. It's homosexuality and illicit sex. Why, this was considered a capital offense in Israel, but today people openly promote all of these wicked behaviors, and they are being told that it should be accepted and as morally decent, but that is a lie. Why, notice what the Apostle Paul wrote in this regard as he accurately described the attitudes of many in our age. For even their women exchanged the natural use for what is against nature. Likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust for one another, men with men, committing what is shameful, being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and evil-mindedness. This is an accurate description of what we see happening around us today, and that is not all that the Bible describes. Why, the prophets foretell the end result of many who choose to ignore God's precepts, and it's not going to be pleasant, to say the least. Even those who may not participate in the debauchery of Mardi Gras and choose to observe Lent believing that they are doing it in honor of Christ, well, you should take a closer look at what you're doing. Consider the fact that believers anticipate a half-hearted fast by allowing themselves to overindulge for a period of time, and then they follow it up with 40 days of supposed penance. Observers may think that this honors Christ's 40-day fast, but the man-made tradition of Lent actually makes a mockery of the personal sacrifice that Jesus made. Why, nowhere does God command an observance like Lent, nor can the term be found anywhere in the Bible. Like all other secular and religious observances leading up to Easter, Lent's origin comes from pagan rites observed prior to Christ's birth. And those who research the subject agree the origin is not biblical. Why, even the Catholic Fathers are forced to admit this truth. Notice what John Cassian, a 5th century monk and theologian, wrote some 1,500 years ago. Howbeit you should know that as long as the primitive church retained its perfection unbroken, this observance of Lent did not exist. The primitive church Cassian spoke of is a reference to the church founded by Christ through the apostles. To call it primitive is inaccurate and frankly disrespectful to the Savior. Why, primitive is characterized as simple, crude, or in the early stages of development. But to believe that the church founded by Christ did not mature until the Catholic Fathers were involved is both arrogant and presumptuous. Instead, Christ gave the apostles instruction and guidance throughout their entire ministry, and he established the Church of God with the doctrine exactly as it should be and remain. Why, there was no need to institute extra-biblical religious rites or to adopt pagan holidays. And Lent is one of those ancient rites of pagans. Why, notice what the famous historian from Scotland, Alexander Hislop, wrote in the 19th century. Whence then came the observance? The 40 days' abstinence of the Lent was directly borrowed from the worshippers of the Babylonian goddess. Such a Lent of 40 days in the spring of the year is still observed by the Yazidis, or pagan devil worshippers of Kurdistan, who have inherited it from their early masters, the Babylonians. Such a Lent was held of 40 days by the pagan Mexicans, for thus we read in Humboldt, where he gives an account of Mexican observances, 3 days after the vernal equinox began a solemn fast of 40 days in honor of the sun. Such a Lent of 40 days was observed also in Egypt, as may be seen on consulting Wilkinson's Egyptians. Among the pagans, this Lent seems to have been an indispensable preliminary to the great annual festival in commemoration of the death and resurrection of Tammuz, who was another pagan god. Ladies and gentlemen, the observance of Mardi Gras and Lent is a violation of the scriptures that tell us to not try and worship God in the same way that the heathen worship their gods. Why, God warned us thousands of years ago and then reiterated it during the ministry of the Apostle Paul when he wrote, "In latter times some will depart from the faith, giving heed to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons, speaking lies and hypocrisy, forbidding to marry, and commanding to abstain from foods which God created to be received with thanksgiving by those who believe and know the truth." This is exactly what has happened, and we see how the Catholic priesthood is forbidden to marry, and they command people to abstain from meat or certain foods that are otherwise acceptable year-round. This is not all to know about Lent and Mardi Gras, ladies and gentlemen. There is much more that we could mention, but we have run out of time for this program. So if you would like to know more about this subject, Quest for Truth is offering a free booklet. The Eternal Church of God produces a variety of literature to help people understand the truth about many religious and secular holidays. Today we are featuring the booklet titled The Truth About Mardi Gras, Epiphany, Ash Wednesday, and Lent. This booklet discusses everything mentioned in this program and much more. All of the literature we produce is offered as a free service in the public interest. There will be no undesired follow-up. You may visit our website to read or request this booklet, or stay tuned, and in just a few moments, we will show you how to receive a free copy of The Truth About Mardi Gras, Epiphany, Ash Wednesday, and Lent. For now, this is Terry Moore, encouraging all of you to continue a quest for truth.
No one knows the day or hour when the end shall come to pass. Not the angels that dwell in heaven, only the Father from above. No one knows the day or hour when the end shall come.